peaceful people struggle as we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We're gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow, but never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass.
We love the open county of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right.
We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass.
This is Quincy Anderson. You know I love my country. There's no other country better than mine. Welcome to Guyana, land of 6 races, 6 different faces, and we all live in love. Guyana is a beautiful country, no other can compare. Got everything right here, so no other can compare. Guyana is made up of so many natural resources. We don't need no forces, cause we got enough resources. Let's talk about bauxite, gold, diamond, and rice. We got it right here. Guyana ain't going nowhere. We got enough oil too. One Guyana, I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. The only place I call home. One Guyana, I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. The only place I call home. Hey, hey, Guyana is nice, Guyana is fun, Guyana is clean, Guyana is green, Guyana got oil, Guyana got gold, Guyana got young and Guyana got old. I ain't talking no more. Guyana got things, we growing wings and developing things. The government real and that's a big deal. I'm singing from my heart, Guyana. I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. The only place I call home. One Guyana. I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. place I call home. Welcome to Guyana, land of 6 races, 6 different faces, and we all live in love. Guyana is a beautiful country, no other can compare. Got everything right here, so no other can compare. Guyana is made up of so many natural resources. We don't need no forces, cause we got enough resources. Let's talk about bauxite, gold, diamond, and rice. We got it right here. Guyana ain't going nowhere. We got enough oil to one Guyana. I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. The only place I call home. One Guyana. I love Guyana. Guyana, my country, my home. The only place I. Oh yes. A lot of you gon' vex, but I tell you, sometimes you just got to listen. There's a child in every home and every community. They will grow up to be symbols of unity. They'll be colorblind to race and ethnicity. That's the vision of a leader like President Irfan Ali. I'm talking about the one Guyana where our people...
I shifted the venue for the press conference because the issues I have to deal with today are mainly of a governmental nature. So I just thought that it's appropriate that I should address them here. The biggest issue in the news today and for the past several days has been the sanction by the Department of Treasury Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, on a number of individuals in Guyana. Since that statement was issued by the US government, the government of Guyana immediately responded by asking the May Thomas, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Labor, to proceed on leave. And we indicated to the US government that we'll be seeking information to aid local investigation and possibly prosecution or the collection of the evaded taxes. So we responded immediately, and I'll tell you what has happened since then. Because in some circles, and I see it reflected in the media, there is a view that the government is silent on this matter. But a government can't work like a social media commentator. It has to be deliberate, serious, and it has to work in a framework, particularly in this case where the action against the identified individuals will depend largely on the evidence that we had received from the United States of America. So let me make it very clear, since the opposition media has been very schizophrenic. One group of them are saying that we are protecting the Mohammeds, and another group has indicated that we are witch hunting the Mohammeds. So we are neither protecting the Mohammeds, nor are we witch hunting the Mohammeds. We have made it clear from the very beginning that people who break the law will face the consequences. And therefore, if the Mohammeds break the law, they will face the consequences. But they have, as Guyanese citizens, a right to due process too, like any other citizen. And therefore, we're not going to be engaged in all of these social media um, posts responding to them, because I believe there are some people who are hired guns to create confusion, and some are doing it for political purposes. We intend to fully investigate this matter. We intend to prosecute those who break the law. We will work in full partnership with the US government. We value that partnership. Since this government has taken office, we've strengthened our partnership in the defense sector, in the law enforcement sector, in the drug fighting, the narcotics fighting sector. Even now, this week, we have a visit from the United States, a senior official from the US, to talk about strengthening some of these bodies. So we have had a good track record on this issue. The AC is off. They should turn it on. Yeah. Or else. Yes. Yeah. But just turn it on. Yeah. Yeah. Just leave it there for the time being until it gets old. So, so I made it clear. We value the partnership between the United States with the government of Guyana and the United States of America. The issue of gold smuggling is not a new issue to Guyana. The Starbuck News, in their article, mentioned the risk assessment that was done for our compliance on the Money Laundering Act. And it rightfully identified gold smuggling as one of the key risks for money laundering. And in that article today, it mentioned a 2016 report that came to the government of Guyana identifying individuals who may have been taking gold into the United States of America illegally. And it said that this report was shared with the government at that time. We never saw that report. Up to today, I asked Mr. McKenzie, the PS of the Ministry of Natural Resources. He said he never saw the report, nor did Ms. Thompson from the Gold Board. But we know the report came. And why do we know that there was this report? Because in a Starbuck News story in 2016, January 6, 2016, Mr. Trotman had this to say, the Minister Trotman at that time. He said, I believe we're losing about 50 something to 60% of our production from smuggling. Trotman told reporters at a press conference today at the Cara Lodge. He said, based on reports, it is assumed that approximately 15,000 ounces of gold is leaving Guyana per week. He said that the gold is going to Brazil, Suriname, and is being landed at the Miami International Airport and JFK Airport in the US, and even as far as Europe and the Middle East. If priced at $1,000 per ounce, now it's $2,000, it would mean around $3 billion would be leaving the country every week. This is Trotman speaking in 2016, January 2016. Trotman disclosed that a team from the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation and Homeland Security visited last year, and that was in 2015, and briefed Minister of Public Security Kemraj Ramjatan and him, that's Trotman, on gold smuggling. The team also interacted with other agencies such as SOCU. According to the minister, the points of entry and exit, as well as the quantities, were garnered from the briefing given by the U.S. team. So he is saying the U.S. team told them in 2016 that 15,000 ounces of gold was leaving Guyana per week. Now, if you multiply 15,000 ounces of gold per week, you will come up to, in a year, by 52 weeks in the year, you will come up to 780,000 ounces per year. 780,000 ounces is 24.2 kilograms of gold, 24,260 kilograms of gold per year in that year. In 2016, 24,260 kilograms of gold, Trotman is saying, was smuggled out. Now, in this case, the US government said that there's 10,000 kilograms smuggled from 2019 to the current date, I think 2023, into the US. But you had twice as much smuggled, based on what Trotman is saying, per year, not over five years period, twice as much smuggled per year in 2016. So it is not a new issue. We never saw the individuals who were identified based on the Starbuck News story. They never got that. But we know for sure that the team came here and met with them, because this is what he said. And he said that they were given the quantities as to how much was exported. So this is not a new issue with us. It didn't happen just last year, etc. And it happened throughout the years. And this investigation that the United States did and sanctioned individuals based on the investigation started in 2019. It started in 2019. So all of those who are trying to make this a PPP issue and a political issue, then they need to just examine these facts. That we know that there have been gold smuggling going on for quite a while. And 6 months ago, we spoke of this at a press conference. I told you that we're starting to get deep into the issue. There's a team now that is identifying the people who are taking the gold out. That what you saw at the airport didn't happen by chance a few weeks ago. And we're getting around how the gold is going now, because nobody even thought that a chain going out, that, a huge chain made from, that looks like silver, is actually gold. It's actually gold. And we heard that they're making it even into containers and taking biscuits out the containers. So when they're going out the country, it looks like a silver container you have, and it's going out. But it's fabricated as a container, a bag or something like that, a metal container, and sprayed over. So this has been happening for quite a while. Now, when the Reuters article came out last year. The Reuters article said that the Mohammeds were being investigated for gold smuggling, money laundering, and drug trafficking. At that time, the president was asked, and we were asked, whether we are aware of this. And we said, no, we are not formally notified at that time that there was any investigation. There was no formal notification. From then, even to now, until the sanctions were done, there was no formal notification. We said, if there is a formal notification, we will act on it. But the US has to formally notify us that this is happening. Now, this investigation took place, and the law enforcement agencies in the United States collaborated. Obviously, they have information, and they instituted the sanctions. We are all aware of the sanctions and their implications for various parties. Now, immediately after the president spoke to the media at the launching of the new vessel that we acquired for the Guyana Defense Force, the Minister of Finance wrote the Secretary of the Treasury, Dr. Janet Yellen, and in his letter, I'm just going to read what it says here, 2 paragraphs. He mentioned the press release that was issued, because that's all we had to go by, the press release too, like everyone else. The said press release refers to, inter alia, falsification of import and export documents, evasion of taxes, and bribery of customs and government officials to facilitate illicit gold shipments and award of government contracts. In order to facilitate our own investigation of the matters raised therein and related thereto, we would be grateful if relevant information and documentation could be shared with us on the officials and transactions involved. So we want to know who the officials are, the government officials. We have asked the US government at the top level, the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America. We wrote directly to her, asking for all of the information about these illegal transactions, the smuggling, as well as all the government officials involved. In this regard, the Guyana Revenue Authority has already submitted on that very day, so this letter went off on Tuesday from the Minister of Finance to the Secretary of the Treasury of the US, and simultaneously a letter went from GRA to the IRS, to the leadership of the IRS, a multi-page letter outlining all of the information that we'd like to have on bank accounts, transactions, a whole range of issues dating back not just to 2020, but all the way to 2015. And we also indicated by when we would need this information, because there is a statute of limitation in Guyana too, for some issues, particularly some types of crime. And so the GRA said, we need this information before the 31st of December of this year, because sometimes we know how long these agencies take to respond to requests from third countries. So the IRS has been written to by the GRA, Mr. Stacia, and the Secretary of the Treasury of the US has been written to by the Minister of Finance. By the way, Mr. Stacia, who was at GRA throughout in the 2015 to 2020 period too, he was there, and now he's still there as head of GRA. We asked whether he had received from the US government any specific information about gold smuggling and names of people involved? The answer was no. He's never received that too there. He did not get that report. So I just want to continue in this regard. The Guyana Revenue Authority has already submitted the attached request for information to the Internal Revenue Service in accordance with the Tax Information Exchange Agreement between our two countries. Any additional relevant details beyond the scope of the said request would also be much appreciated. So we now have taken the step that we want to see the information about any government official who may be corrupt, regardless of which agencies they're in, and we would like to get the information about the goal. Because if this goal has been entering since 2019 and declared here in the United States of America, and it's about 10,000 kilograms, they said. Was this seized? And if it was seized, why were we not notified in the last 5 years when they were seizing this? Or is this information that they got from third parties? We'd like to find out more so we can reconcile this. Now, since last year, we've asked our team here, led by the PS of Natural Resources, Mr. McKenzie and Ms. Thompson from the Gold Board, to look at UN data, trade data. So we see some discrepancies there, and they produce a report. But we can't use the UN report because they have maybe some gaps there. We're going directly to the United States. We'd like to get information as to how this gold, whether it was seized in the US, what information they have on it, to whom it was sold, who carried it out, all of this information we'd like to get so we can then move to take action here. First of all, to recover the taxes lost, because it's estimated at around 50 million US dollars. So we can take action to recover the taxes, and then we can take action to prosecute people if they breached our law, because smuggling gold out is a breach of the law. It is a breach of not just, and so the penalty that you see or the charges will be different, but I'll come to that in a minute. So we have taken this action so far to get information on everyone involved. Now, we have also asked on Tuesday that the FIU and the Bank of Guyana to prepare a report on the implications of the sanction for our financial system. So they will present a comprehensive report on the implications of the sanction for our financial system. We want to safeguard our financial system. That would mean exposures of our bank to the Mohammeds and any other matter that may have a direct bearing of a financial nature on our system, because we are obligated to do so under the sanctions to safeguard the financial sector of Guyana. The central bank has notified us that they have already indicated to the Mohammeds that they will cancel their Cambio license, because that's part of the financial system. However, they have to do this report, the FIU and the Bank of Guyana, a comprehensive report, and present this to the government to look at the implications for the broader financial system. We have also asked all of the other agencies that have some form of engagement with the Mohammeds to review their transactions and present a report to the government of Guyana to ensure that we're in full compliance with the sanction regime. Because we don't want to expose our country to problems because of these sanctions and non-compliance with these sanctions. We don't want to expose government entities to the potential sanctions. We also looked at the government contracts, because that was another issue about in the US report or the press release. It said that they were bribing officials to get contracts. So I asked the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board, MPTAB, to tell us how many contracts the Mohammeds had since 2020. I don't know before, but since 2020. They said there are 2 contracts that they had. One was for the 1 lot in the Lusignan prison, and then the second was for the fire headquarters, in Georgetown here, fire service headquarters. So we asked to look at whether these were public bids. Both of them were public tenders. They were not selective tenders, they were public tenders. In the first case, you had 2 engineers and one from the GDF, agriculture, and then another person evaluating the bid for the Lusignan tender. In the Lusignan tender, the Mohammeds were the lowest responsive bidder for 3 lots based on the evaluation report, all 3 lots. They were the lowest responsive bidder, but the evaluation committee only recommended 1 lot, and they only got 1 lot. They did not get all 3 lots, although they were the lowest responsive bidder for all 3 lots. So that is clear, and that was for $370 million. And then the second project was the fire service headquarters. Again, the 3 engineers from finance, agriculture, and GDF, they evaluated this bid. That was an open tender, and they were the lowest of the evaluated tender, the responsive bidder, and it was awarded at $614 million. I'm told that both contracts have been completed. Both contracts have been completed. So combined, the 2 contracts are, since 2020, 984 million Ghana dollars, which is just under 5 million US dollars. Now, you know that you have single contracts that are bigger than that. One of the pump stations could be bigger than this contract here. I'm not saying a critic contract, these 2 contracts, but these were the only 2 contracts that the MPTAB said to me that the Mohammeds got in the 4 years on the PPP. So we are very interested in also getting information, because that was one of the issues in the press release, which says that they were bribing officials to get contracts, but there are only 2 contracts that the Mohammeds have here. Now, this morning, I went through with the head of the Gold Board and their staff, and also the Ministry of Natural Resources, the process through which you export gold. So they said there are 6 dealers there who have received a license to store, basically to buy whole export gold and to have a separate account. So I just want to take you through the legal process, and then The smuggling is illegal, so that doesn't come through this process. To show you what happens in the legal process for exporting gold, because many people think we don't have a system. So you, first of all, if you're one of these dealers and you want to export your gold, you have to pay your royalties and taxes, first of all, on the gold that you plan to export. Then you make an application to the Guyana Gold Board, the Ministry of Tourism Industry and I don't know, Tourism Industry and Commerce, and also the GRA for the export license. The Gold Board then verifies that you have paid the taxes and then sends a letter saying the taxes they have no objection to your export, and they then send this to the GRA and to the ministry. But once they have verified the taxes have been paid, the royalties, etc. Then they set a date for the sealing of the gold. So they go to the premise of the exporter, the customs is there, the gold board is there, and they then weigh the gold. This is what they said to me, and they affix a seal. Customs affixes their seal, and the gold board affixes their seal. I asked the head of the gold board, Ms. Thompson, could the seal be sold? Could someone steal the seal and sell it away? She said it's a rigid audit, and the same thing the GRA said to me, that we have a rigid audit and it's numbered sequentially. So they seal this in the presence of everyone, and then they have one company that transports the gold to the airport. It's some amalgamated security that transports for all of the dealers. They standardize that. And the gold board then issues another letter specifying after the seal to use for the export papers. They issued another letter certifying the quantities. They then take it to the airport. Customs is there. The airlines weigh the gold again for cargo purposes to see that it coincides with what is on the weight on the sealed shipment, and then it gets exported. So on this document that they make application for, they have to specify quantity and destination. Quantity and destination of the gold. That's two basic requirements. So that is how the legal process goes. It's a multi-agency arrangement. Outside of that, the smuggled gold, of course, and I think this is what the US is talking about, doesn't come through that. But there is a robust system in place to ensure that the gold that comes through the system, that it's properly certified by a multi-agency approach. CANU also then reviews it sometimes, the export of the gold. Now, clearly, we have to strengthen this arrangement further, and possibly by some review by an external consultant to strengthen this, to see what additional safeguards we can put from gold declared legally and shipped through the system. We would have to probably get a feedback from the exporters from the third countries in which they're exporting. Because when you look at the UN trade data, to show how much gold was declared, say, in the United States or UAE and Guyana, and how much was exported, there's a discrepancy. but it is not of the magnitude like what the US has said being smuggled here. So if all of this is being smuggled, it should be captured in the UN trade data. So there are issues there. So we may have to work this through a system and get more help from those countries to which it's exported, because they know what the figures are. They could easily see in Gaia in every year how much gold we exported and how much they received, because it's part of their trade stats, and they can easily send us this information. So we'd have to strengthen cooperation, but we have now received that from many countries, even when we have requested this. So clearly, we have to strengthen the system. We have to, how do we deter smuggled gold now? Because I'm talking a lot about the ones that exported legally. Smuggled gold now, they don't come through any system. They try to avoid the taxes, which is the royalty payment and the 5% final tax, the corporate tax. And it could be used for money laundering purposes. So we'd have to get help from the receiving countries, as I said before. But we also have to strengthen the system of penalties. Not against small people, but against these big exporters. And what do I mean like now? So you saw like the 3 individuals who were caught at the airport. They got charged under the Gold Board Act, and the penalty is small there. But I'm told they're also going to be charged under the Money Laundering Act. That is, additional charges are coming. So it's not just one end. We need to strengthen the charges and the penalties for illegal export of gold by these large, or smuggling of gold abroad by these large smugglers. Secondly, we need to strengthen financial penalties. So in customs, if you evade taxes and you smuggle goods in and you have undeclared goods, you have to pay a fine of triple the duty paid value. So like in this case now, the 7%, it's estimated that the 50 million we lost is 7% of the total value of the gold, because that is the royalty and tax rates amount to 7% of the value of the goods. If you had to pay triple the duty paid value or triple the value on that, you'll probably have to pay a penalty of 25% of the value of the gold. Something of that nature. So we may want to take what we do at customs now and introduce it here for the evasion of gold. So there is massive, not just you pay the foregone taxes, but you also have to pay for the additional, you have to pay a huge penalty, which is in multiples of the evaded taxes. So if you get caught, there's a big risk. First of all, you get charged under an act that has severe penalties. Secondly, there's a big financial risk because you have massive fines. And thirdly, we may have to start exploring what we did under the laws dealing with money laundering or drug trafficking, forfeiture of assets arising from illegal proceeds. So we intend to strengthen this to tackle also smuggling, to get more risk to the smugglers, more risk. Because if they believe they can smuggle and all they would encounter is a penalty, I may have to just pay the taxes if I get caught, which I would have had to pay in any case, or I just get charged under the Gold Board Act for smuggling, and that's a tiny penalty and a monetary penalty, then there is no deterrence. There's no deterrence to them doing this. So we have to do this sort of thing because it's been going on for a while. And I think with all the internal investigations and incentivizing people to comply, we have done all sorts of incentives. We have lowered the taxes so that they can have better environment, you know, but still no compliance because the rewards of smuggling seem to be greater. The foregone tax revenue seems to be a big incentive. We have to take away that incentive now by putting a regime of penalties and sanctions if you get caught smuggling the large quantity of gold. I'm not talking about the guy who's going out and got a small pen, you know, like a little band or a bangle on their wrist, a tiny thing like that. Not that group I'm talking about. I'm talking because once they declare, that's fine too. I'm talking about these smugglers who have been smuggling at this magnitude. So we're looking to address this matter fully. We'll do so in cooperation with the United States of America. We've already requested their help, and we hope that that help is forthcoming very early so we can then have details so we can take steps to address these matters. That's the first issue. Then, as you know, as I said before, any official of the government who's been involved in any act that is inimical to the interests of the government of Guyana or the state of Guyana and been engaged in any corrupt act, they will face the penalties. There will be no protection. Now, May Thomas was sent on leave. May has subsequently sent me a letter as General Secretary of the party to resign from the Central Committee of the party. She has indicated she did not want to bring the party into disrepute. She worked hard in the party, very hard. She's a hard worker in the party, as many of you know her. And she said, I'm available I maintain my innocence and I'm available for any investigation. Any investigation. So this is a hard thing because she's like those people who know her in the party know how hard she worked through the tough APNU times, etc. And so this is I'm sad that she actually did that and she is caught with this, but we have to deal with it at a national level. So this.
You're sad that she actually did that in terms of resign?
No, resign. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I just said she maintained her innocence. Yes, not resign from the leadership of the party because she's a hard worker. But this is something that we have to deal with in the future. So all of those who are speculating out there, we're not going to act in a hasty manner, but we have worked transparently over the years to clean up many things in this country. The procurement system under APNU there was practically no procurement system. There's practically no procurement system. They had ministers taking things directly to the cabinet, a whole range of stuff. Right now, you can complain about the evaluation, etc., but there is a procurement system. We have reintroduced that. And in spite of the large number of contracts in the country, we're observing that. We do have some occasional problems with corruption, etc., but we're tackling those too as we find them. And we're committed to that. We have reinstated the Integrity Commission, basically with APNU practically destroying it. 3 years of no public declaration. You ask Trotman and all of those officials whether they declare their assets and what they were doing in those 3 years under APNU when they breached the law. And many of them continue to breach the law. So our track record, today I don't want to go back through this. Some people believe we're on the back foot. I'm proud of the track record that we've had in moving this country forward and cleaning up a lot of these things. And I made it clear. People say, oh, the Mohammeds may have helped the PPP. And that's true because they were here in this country in the past. And that might have been true because many people have been there. But I remember going with Chedi Jagan once to Skelton. And we had just established in the early period 2 units. It's called called BAS, Berbice Anti-Smuggling Squad, when we came into office to prevent smuggling of goods from Suriname because they were evading taxes there. And another one, COMU, in Georgetown, Customs Something Monitoring Unit. And we brought in a gentleman called Wellings, a British consultant who was working with us to stop this smuggling in the early period. So the people who were smuggling, some of them who were smuggling across the river, said to Chedi Jagan, we made a donation to your party. And in the period when we were fighting. And look what you're doing now. And Chedi Jagan said to them, don't believe because you made a donation to the PPP sometime in the past that if you break the law, you're going to get special treatment. There was no quid pro quo when you made the donation. We didn't solicit the donation. If you give a donation sometime in the past, and I'm sure the Mohammeds probably gave a donation to APNU and to everyone else, AFC and all of that. But that does not mean that if you break the law, you get a free pass. And that's the principle. There was no quid pro quo that I'm giving you this so I can break the law. We're not tolerant of that. So I remember that. I sat with Chedi Jagan there. I was in the finance, I think junior minister, or I don't think I was even minister. Yes, maybe it was in the 90s. And at Skelton, their state house there. And we had this big meeting. And very loud. And people were saying, oh, they're blocking the goods coming from Suriname and stuff. And that was the purpose, the Berbice Anti-Smuggling Squad. So I've seen a lot of things going out there, all these speculations and all sorts of things. The People's Progressive Party has some principles, and we intend to abide by those principles. But at the same time, we're now witch hunting the Mohammeds. And this didn't start this investigation because Azruddin Mohammed is posting on Facebook. This started in 2019, that the US is saying, 2019. And for those who are saying, oh, it's a PVP phenomenon, it started a long time before the US investigation, as they made clear. So this has nothing to do with that. We know witch hunting, and as Guyanese citizens, they have a right to challenge these issues in the court. They have a right to write the US and under the same OFAC to request to come off the list and to present an alternate set of facts if they have those. If they have those, they're as Guyanese citizens. But so we neither, I start or end from where I started. We're neither witch hunting them, nor are we protecting anyone. And let me move on to some other issues. I see maybe I should come to some policy. So on the teachers matter, I've seen since my last press conference, I spoke of what the government is exploring to improve the education system so that our children have a better learning environment and higher and better levels of tuition. So we have an obligation to do that as the government of Guyana. We're not going to be apologetic to anyone, an editorial in the Kaichor News or Roysdale Ford about this. We have a duty to do that. We reflect that duty to our children by increasing the budget from $54 billion when we got into office to $135 billion this year. The biggest increase ever in our entire history by multiples. And that you can verify that. That's verifiable. It's verifiable. You don't have to take my word for it. And it deals with every single thing. It deals with scholarships. It deals with tertiary education. But the bulk of it is going to primary education, improvement of learning environment, as well as higher pay for our teachers, more training for our teachers. We're proud of that because no other party has done that. We're proud of that. So we don't have to be apologetic. So when Roysdale Ford, looking for relevance now, because of the leadership battle there, says VP Jagdeo proposal effectively undermines the very foundation of our education system. What I effectively said last week is that, one, we are exploring ways of getting better quality education to our children. It is no secret now that we are spending twice as much on the public school on a child than than the parents have to pay for private education. And this wasn't always there. It only happened in the last 4 years because it was about $300,000 per child in 2020, and now it's about $700,000 per child that we're spending. And the average private school is about $300,000 per child. That's the average. You have some slightly higher and much lower per year. That's a fact, and it's PPP. I said to give choices to parents and their children, choices, we have to explore in the future. Not that we have agreed to. We have to explore as a country whether we want to give some parents in areas where you have good schools a voucher for $700,000 a year, and then let them decide which school they want to send their kids to. We have to explore that as one of the ways of improving maybe access and also quality of tuition. I also argued that we have to get public education up to the same level of tuition as private. So that's one method I said. And then I said maybe for areas that it's difficult for people to go to school, to give people another option to an e-school model versus physically going to school, but just as an option. So they choose themselves, the parents. It means they can make choices for their children about where to go. So Starbuck News put, it's not e-school, it's e-learning, electronic learning. No, it's e-school, which is different than electronic learning in their editorial. Electronic learning is, you could do one subject there. E-learning, you could use part of the curriculum there. I'm talking about the e-school where the full curriculum is done purely online. Purely online. the concept, maybe they didn't encounter it before. So they thought I had it wrong. I'm talking about e-learning rather than e-school. I was saying that choices to parents. What's wrong with us exploring as a government, giving you, the parents of this country, more choices for your children? And I said we are exploring it. Not that we've agreed to do this. We're just doing this. We have to think all the time about how to improve things for our children, not to sit like dodos every day. That could happen in APNU, not in this government. Secondly, I said we're going to train, give more opportunities to our teachers for training. We already trained over 2,000 at Cyril Potter College in the period we've been in office, and we have 4,000 more on Gold Scholarship. This is 6,000 of 14,000 teachers. So I said we would fund the training because we want better quality teachers in the classroom, but we will pay for that improvement. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with saying also that once we give you better quality education and we improve the salaries at the upper end too, we intend to hold people more accountable. So you get more money and you also are trained by the state, paid for fully by the state. But what's wrong with holding teachers accountable for performance? We would want to hold, the parents would want that to happen. So they blame me. They said it's a failure of the government because about 4,000 of 14,000 people don't show up, only 70% on a daily basis with school, in school, show up to the classroom. So that's precisely why I said we have to hold the head teachers more accountable for management of the school. You have cases where half of the staff, the headmaster, the headmistress, send out during the day. They're on some training course, etc. The children sitting in the classroom waiting. Is it fair to the children? We have to hold the administrators of the education who are being paid by the state more accountable. What's wrong with that? With a state exploring that? So what's wrong with us if we now reduce the GTU sign an agreement with the government in APNU to have 25 kids on average in the classroom per teacher? We have now gone down to 12.8 kids in the classroom. But Nigel usually make a noise about no 0.8 of a child, But that's the ratio, teachers to student ratio. Half of that in the classroom. If we're doing that, shouldn't we hold people more accountable? You have smaller classrooms too. So what's wrong with all of these things? That's what I said last week. How does that undermine collective bargaining? Oh, I'm undermining collective bargaining. We have to constantly be thinking about these things. We're doing it in the health sector too. Right now, we have somebody who did a manpower survey of all the skills we need in the 12 new hospitals, and we've started now recruiting and training people. Because when those hospitals start coming online by the end of this year and early next year, at least 6 or 8 of them will come online, then we have to have people. We're planning for that now. We're planning on management. So constantly this is there. I saw this happening. So this is not undermining collective bargaining. It's called thinking. Thinking. It's just a basic thing like that. That's an alien concept to Roysdale Ford, it seems. And the Starbuck News picked it up because I think they want to give him a little boost in his battle with Norton. But it is nonsense. He's just trying to make an issue out of nothing. And then Gulsaran weighed into in a vacuous article, and he said, "Oh, the teachers, the decision on the teachers." So defending whether it's legal or illegal, and then saying, my point is, legal or an illegal strike. That's not the issue. if fine, the strike was legal. Fine, the strike was legal. But even if it's legal, you cannot say that people will get paid for no work. No matter how you twist and turn the words freedom and right under the Constitution, it's not freedom and right for one party. I have my money is my property and defined by law, the Constitution. If I have to part with my money, then I have to receive a corresponding benefit. I buy goods or I buy a service. You're telling me I have to part with my money, which is property protected by the Constitution, and I'm not getting no service because you're not working. So I have to pay you because somewhere in the Constitution, a judge interprets this as a right. Interprets the right or the freedom as meaning that they can deprive me of my property. Both parties have property. I have my labor and you have your money. And the exchange there takes place. And this is not government. I'm talking about private. You think about it. If you own a business now and you have people working for you and they come one day and say, you know, the judge ruled that I could get paid when I don't work. Then you got to pay me. You're breaching my Constitution. I sit down or I don't come to work. I got to get paid. How would you feel? That's depriving another person of their property. That's what Goldstone and all the others, they miss. They miss. And which government could support that? Even if it's APNU was in power. Which government could support that? It would lead to collapse of the society, not just government, of the society in which you live. So the APNU has gone around with this, lest we forget. Last week I dealt with it, lest we forget. The bunch of lies they tell. The last one was, it's totally shameless. Look, they put there, lest we forget how much subvention they give to all the tongues. Georgetown, New Amsterdam, Curverton, Rose Hall, Linden, Anna Regina, Bartica, Letem, Mabaruma, Madhya. So this works out to about 193 million per year for all of these 10 tongues. In Georgetown alone, on roads, we're spending $5 billion per year. And Georgetown here is like, 22 million to 30 they gave Georgetown. 22 million. They increased it at subvention in the years that they've been in office. In 5 years, right? They increased it from 22 to 30 in Georgetown. And they don't have any shame to put this out. I'm amazed. Don't they have an internal vetting machine? Like when people put out things in the party, once it got a party stamp on it, you gotta run it by me, because I want to make sure that it's not stupid. Lest we forget, look at this mediocre thing. Can you imagine this? These guys, they increased Georgetown subvention from 22 to 30 million a year in the 5 years. We're spending $5 billion on roads across the city now, roads alone, leaving out all the other things. I don't even want to do. As a single, there are 193 million for all 10 tongues. In a single tongue, like in New Amsterdam, we're spending more than that on roads. If you look at, we did probably 40 roads in New Amsterdam, paved over and stuff like that. And they put this out. Okay? And so, lest we forget, they increased salary by 77%. Now, it's not totally true, but I'm not going to say anything to you. I hope that, now these are verified figures, that I hope that all of those of you, all of the people who've been talking about commitment to wages and salaries, I'm going to give you documents. So you can leave, each of you will have a document here today. So I'm going to leave this on my desk for you here. Let me take one and just take you through a couple of things. So in 2014, there are three categories in the public sector employment. The central government, public enterprises, and the statutory bodies. These get money basically from the government and from government agencies and stuff like that. These are the government sectors. So we looked at the wages, and it's self-explanatory. The wages between 2014 to 2019, the APNU period, and it was a 56% increase. And from 2020 to 2024, it's 66.1% increase. So in the 4 years, we have gotten more, a 10% more than percentage point more increase than APNU. But that's not the issue. Often you have to look at the nominal value. You can't just look at the percentage. You have to look at the nominal value of it. So what's this nominal value? So increase in 2014 to 2019 was $43 billion. So when they started in 2014, and by 2019, the wage bill for these three areas had gone up by $43 billion. Guess how much it went up to from 2020 to 2024? The increase has been $83 billion. $83 billion. More than 100% of, about 100% more than what APNU gave for the 5 years. Because it's nominal dollars. Because every year the base grows, it's bigger. So when you calculate your percentage on a 2014 or 2015, it's smaller sums of money. But people got now, since we got into office, the public sector in their pockets have gotten $83 billion more per year. Per year, this is what it is. Per year, they're going to get $83 billion more per year. And I'm giving you this table so that I hope you publish it over and over again and ask Norton when you go to the press conference, share this with him. Share this with him. It speaks about their period, and then you see the nominal value. That's actual money, not percentage now. $83 billion more per year you're getting in your pocket from when we started, when we took over, versus $43 billion more people are getting from when they started per year in their pockets. This is, so when they put out all of these things, 77% we love the public sector, it's utter nonsense. It's utter nonsense. $83 billion more per year, only on public sector wages. That is, remember, we brought in the budget this year $300 billion from oil. And $83 billion more is going to the people. So this is something you get copies of it. And you can then look at that later. Because it's been a recurring thing with their little stupid thing here that they put out all the time. 77% increase. And it's fake. And it's fake, you know. It's fake. They don't look at it. Let's see if let me see what else I need to deal with today. So they've been there's a new narrative now. I've seen them picking it up. I saw an article in the Chicago Journal of International Law. I'm sure you've seen it. Gail Teixeira has responded comprehensively to this. And you're going to see, because it's basically an unscholarly piece. And I'm shocked that such an unscholarly piece that is part of a conspiracy theory would enter and get published by a prestigious magazine or law report like the Chicago Journal of International Law. I'm shocked that this has happened. But I gather the person is also editor in chief. So this is similar to the Russians who came here to help the PPP win the elections, and they changed the paper ballot to help the PPP win the elections. And what does this say? That so the article is quite nice. Natekyo mati I to see, right? U.S. involvement in the 2020 Guyanese elections. Well, I think the author takes mati I for see this. That is exactly, and you know who is the Mati? Is Apnu, right? They take their eyes to see this. She got some conspiracy theory from Ramjatan or Patterson. So that's not straight thing. And then she ran with it. A basic reading of anything, as read Gail Tisher, a basic reading of any report will show you that how nonsensical this piece is and unscholarly. And it gets published. But I think it's part of the whole mindset in which they're living. So I gather Benchcup was on another program. He brought, they told me some Bart Fisher. Now, Bart Fisher was the man who was helping them in the 5 months period, was hired by that group abroad, by APNU. And I think in spite of Benchcup trying to lure the guys, some Anderson and Bart Fisher, they're clever people. They were not getting involved in the local politics. The man said, whichever government, APNU or PNC or PPP, they have to work at cleaning up the gold smuggling system, and that's accurate. So they were very clear. I don't think they got sucked into the Benchcup or Benchcup's conspiracy theory. He tried very hard. But one thing that they repeated, in line with the very same thing, that somehow there was a regime change in Guyana, like what this journal is saying. So that's a consistency between the two, that the intervention by the US government and the State Department and the threat of sanctions in Guyana was part of US hegemony in the region and regime change in the region based on historical antecedents. So he tried that too, that somehow the Secretary of State in the US wanted regime change in Guyana, ignoring that everything that came out of the elections, the Observer report, the Commission of Inquiry report, the Caribbean Court of Justice, all of these issues, they ignored them totally. And it was the US that wanted regime change in Guyana, which is total nonsense. We're grateful to the US, to CARICOM, to the EU, and OAS, and everyone else who stood up bilaterally, and the local forces too, including some of the media here, to the clear attempt, the transparent attempt to steal elections. Only APNU live in that mindset. But to tell you how delusional these people are, or how the extent they will go to distort facts to suit a particular narrative, is that Benchcup said to his guests, after the recount, The recount showed that APNU had 60,000 votes more than the PPP. He said the recount showed that. And then the man said, oh, really? 60,000 votes? The regime changed in Ghana. The recount showed. You look back at that stuff. Someone sent it to me because I'm not in the habit of listening to him. Every time I listen to him, I remember how he used to cry in prison and beg me to pardon him. He used to cry and send messages all the time with a number of people for the pardon. So I don't look too much at him because it takes me back to those days, the crybaby days. So and I got my dear friend Burke, the criminal, is also hosting some parallel event now too. So I wish him well on his parallel event. I heard, by the way, that the court ordered that he give his address in the US, right? When he filed this matter before the High Court, and his lawyer was supposed to submit it. And the lawyer submitted a fake address because it has the wrong zip code on it. And I heard in 3 different cases, he submitted different places of dwelling. Either he's nomadic, he got thrown out the basement, or he's just doing it. He's just doing it to evade, the law enforcement authorities here and abroad. So I just had to give him a shout out on his parallel event that he has to speak about me. He should explain that to people. So let me get back to the serious business. So this is what they're trying to do. In this day and age, they're still trying to make out that we stole elections and the US helped us to steal elections. This party has no changing. The PNC has no changing, and that's why they're going nowhere. They're not going to win the elections. In fact, they have bigger problems. I think you have some people. So I saw something from Village Voice, right? Village Voice now. Can you imagine Village Voice, the arm of the PNC, saying the campaign for Manza this year ramped up the pressure on leader of the PNC, Aubrey Norton, with chants of Aubrey nothing, go, Aubrey got to go. This is Village Voice saying that, he got to go. Give the young people a chance, their voice is also. So this is Village Voice harassing Norton. And then they said that Roysdale Ford quietly walked in and chuckled. And the show is good, right? It's just a show. Roysdale Ford couldn't even secure a couple of nominations. And by the way, they said at the end, reliable insiders, that some groups submitted their nomination list without naming a nominee for leader. So my inside info is that they submitted Kwame McCoy, nominated him for leadership of the PNC. Kwame, you're trending there from Village Voice. Kwame has a big fan following there too. A lot of people he's been getting. You sure, Kwame, you don't want to stake your claim? Kwame may do better than Ben Loisdale Ford in there now. So I think it's a lot of, you see what's happening in their camp. Every week, one saying, oh, the list is not right, this thing is not right. And they're heading for disaster. Rigged elections, I don't know what's going to happen internally. And they're looking for distractions. They're looking for distractions. But as I said before, it's mediocrity. I can't imagine that the biggest party in the APNU coalition said, we didn't know we were not invited to a meeting, and all these small parties elected a new head of APNU and left out the leadership of the PNC. You know that they're nothing. The PNC at least has a base. There's these people, this man, some Vincent Henry, I don't think people even know who he is, and he's now heading APNU. Which, if you see that disorganization, why would you even want to be part of that? It's like nobody wants to be part of that. I see our dear friend, what's his name again? The 34 is the majority of Nigel Hughes. Yeah, cleverly all of the last thing. So you now know why he was trying to stake a little claim all the time by raising controversial issues. So he wants to ban the word Negro. You saw that APNU must go to the parliament and submit a bill to do that. So we must stop. So we made it clear people must be respected. We want a unifying thing, and I see a lot of criticism. We're all Guyanese of particular descent, and that's what we've changed it to. So you must, and all state agencies must comply because we're all Guyanese. We may have of different descent, Amerindian, Indian, or African, but we're Guyanese, and that's what people must be described as. Male Guyanese of this descent, female Guyanese of another descent. So that is clear. And it's the people who are complaining about it who were perpetrating it, like Felix and all of the others. They had meetings to do that. Just duplicity and really, how can you trust people like that? He was doing all of this because he wants to be leader of the AFC, wants to go back to show he's fighting for people. But he's taking it a little bit too far by denying our history too, as someone pointed out. Because if you do that, if you ban this word, now we can't listen to Malcolm X. We can't listen to Martin Luther King. We can't listen to speeches of Du Bois. These are great leaders who fought for freedom in the United States and around the world, emancipation of people. You can't listen to them anymore because that's a banned word now. And they spoke extensively about this. So it shows how shallow it is. It is. But these guys are very convenient. And now we set a list of conditions. The prima donna. You know, I will take this up only if you all do this. Bow before me or comply. Which that's a prima donna type of approach to politics. You have to go down on the ground and work sincerely, and people must see your heart. Not just making an occasional statement or exploit divisions in our society, or differences, rather, I should say, and stoke division in our society. That's what they do. So, I still wish them well for the Congress. And you saw what I meant. The FC didn't have many people there. I saw Ramjatan dropped out. You realize the truth of my word that they want to steal some of the delegates from the PNC's Congress. That's why they set it there. They will have them come over to make up numbers and then go back there. AFC is dead. So for a while now, we've been trying to, I see a lot on the oil and gas. And let me say a few things here. So the IEA has shown that the demand for oil is being reduced. CNBC today said that oil prices could drop to $60 per barrel next year because they anticipate that you have overproduction, large inventories, etc. It just reinforces the point that we've been making, that when you plan for the future, you can't plan to use what you may not have. And that is what APNU does well. And that is why we ended up, after 20 odd years in office, we became the second poorest country in the hemisphere with the most indebted by 90s, after 28 years of APNU's stewardship. So you have to be careful to ensure that whatever you commit to, particularly on the recurrent side, wages, other recurrent expenditure, that it can be sustained based on the future revenue flows. So that's the first point. So I think when people see this, they should have cause to rethink what many are advocating. Secondly, if the fossil fuel will have an overproduction and basically a steep fall off in the future, as the IEA is predicting, then beyond that date, you're not going to get investments to go in to the sector because there is no demand for it. So nobody will invest because their assets would be stranded and they would make huge financial losses. So what you have to do is to make sure that even before the fall off in demand, which is coming and as predicted by the IEA, that you secure your investments early. The Brazilian minister alluded to this when he said that you examine what Guyana is doing, that to lock in basically these early investments. We have now locked in 6 FPSOs that will take us to 1.3 billion barrels. This would be about a 50 something billion US dollars of investments over the period. Very, very few countries in the world have been able to secure that investment or to do it on fossil fuel. Suriname is still to start. They may start producing if everything goes well and they make a decision to invest as investors by the end of this year or so to do a project. They may very well come on stream when you already start. If by 2030 things are getting hard. So it is, I urge a lot of those who just running around like headless chicken in this country and all the time talking a lot of nonsense and stuff like that to be very thoughtful about this issue, to think it through. It's not a while things that will make a difference. You think some environmental conference by a group of people who are always extremists, who think we should shut down everything in any case, will deliver better quality education or healthcare or ensure that in the long run we have a sustainable policy? I see a Stabrook editorial, a really, I don't know how many times you have to talk about this, but saying that we've made no improvement to the framework to manage the oil and gas sector in the PVP period. And no, not because we didn't put the Petroleum Commission. I've just explained a million times here about 10 things we did that are substantial to improve the framework, and barefacedly put in an editorial, we done nothing. And so you got to go back all over again and rebut the same things over and over and over again. Glenlal, ring fencing. I see you want Norton to ring fence something. Norton better ring fence Congress place before 28. But that's good advice to Norton, ring fencing there. But it's the same old worn thing. Now, the new conspiracy theory is that we didn't release the full audit report. That's the new thing. The audit report that we made public on the site, that we did not release the full audit report. Now, the full audit report was released. They said we redacted 40 pages out of the report. You can't redact it. Redact means you would have seen in it where the redaction took place. We didn't redact it. That's in the editorial. Along with the management report, along with the audit report, is a management report. Now, the auditors have made it clear to us that Exxon must not see the management letter. That the auditors have, this is their thing with us. The management letter comes to us. So we can't release that because the auditors don't. They tell us keep this away from ExxonMobil. That's the management letter. That's not the audit. So they want us to go and publish this now, the management, because they're hearing about this, some piece redacted. So this is, I see the Kaichor News been dealing with this. Not you, Marcel. So yeah, this is a Kaichor News been saying redacted. Not your editorial, their editorial. A redaction, you see, it's not that. It's a separate report. It's called a management report. It's not the audit report. Anybody understanding audit would know that the management report is to the client, and you don't want the other side to see it. But it's a big conspiracy of 4 or 5 articles about that already. Big conspiracy theory again. That's ton of it. Should I again oil money earn about the profits? Exxon and partners made 6.5 billion US profits in Guyana in 2023, while Guyana earned 1.6 billion. So they can never earn more profit than we would earn. Because if it's a 50-50 production sharing agreement and we have a 2% royalty, they can't earn more. So there is a difference. Again, when I spoke to you in the past, I said there's a difference between expenses to calculate accounting profit versus expenses deductible for compliance with the PSA. They're two different things. And please go back and look at what it means. The profit and loss statement is one thing, but then a lot of what you will see as profit there, when you take the significant part is amortization. It goes back to pay back for capital in compliance with the PSA. It's different. Accounting classifications are very different for these things. So again, what is deductible for the calculation of profit is different than what is deductible for compliance in accordance with the PSA. Please try to understand that. On decommissioning, again, let me make it clear that although the PSA says that they are going to keep the funds for decommissioning, and we're not getting those funds until the future, I've explained, and that was a bad element of the PSA. Without changing the PSA, in the license for whiptail, they now have to establish a special decommissioning account and pay all of the money in for decommissioning into that account. So we managed to get the best practice through the license here. But APNO signed an agreement where the decommissioning proceeds are kept by the companies. Now, this was in compliance with the law that we passed, the new law, the Petroleum Activities Act. So the license had to be issued under that new act that we passed, and therefore it speaks about the decommissioning fund. Now we have received, similarly, we have received now the draft environmental, the bill to address spills, and we are proceeding now to have the internal discussions. And as I said before, we'll move forward on that issue shortly. These are just some of the things I wanted to once again reiterate so that we don't have confusion on these matters. Right? Thank you. When Dennis shows up, Dennis, you're there? You're sitting at the back. What are you sitting on the floor? You're hiding from me. I didn't even realize you're here.
Good afternoon. Mr. Jagdeo, with respect to the Mohammed's issue, aren't you worried that the U.S. has left the government in the dark about the investigations into the Mohammeds dating back to several years? And, sir, will their gold trading license be revoked? And thirdly, in the High Court matter concerning the GTU, why it appears that the government is not considering the fact that it has not, for a very long time, acceded to the request for collective bargaining, hence the decision by the judge that the teachers should be paid for the time they were in strike.
No. The teachers should be paid for the time they're on strike because of a particular interpretation of the Constitution, saying that the Constitution confers on them this right to receive pay for no work, because it's not freedom to strike, it's the right to strike. So it is not specific to the teachers' strike. There's a ruling on what our Constitution means. So any strike, any worker now, if that ruling stands, can go on strike and make the argument that we have a court ruling which says that we should be paid for the days we're striking, whether in the public sector or private sector. That's one. So that's why I said this has this issue. We don't agree with the judge that there was no collective bargaining. We believe that what do you call several meetings between 2020 to 2023, where the union submitted a list of about 40 issues to be addressed, and the ministry addressed 27 of them. How would that happen? Is that not bargaining? Is that not collective bargaining too? They said they had a difference over wages and salaries increase.
What was discussed?
Right. So there was a difference over that. And we said from the beginning, we are prepared to have a multi-year agreement from 2024 going forward. And they said, no, they wanted it to go back to 2017, then 2019, and 2022. The ministry, and I should have said this, the ministry and the union has had some recent good engagements, exchange of letters, and I think we're moving forward. And hopefully we'll get back to the table. I've seen some serious progress being made recently. However, we disagree with the judge that there was no collective bargaining. We had a meeting when the union went on strike. They met on the 28th of January, I think, 2023, and had an agreement. They will meet on every third Wednesday, I think, of every month. That was an agreement. That is meeting people in discussions. So we don't agree with, not because it's rule, we don't agree with their ruling, and that's why we're disputing. We're not disputing. Well, we respect the court ruling. We have abided by it, but we are challenging it in a higher court. And yes, so the first one about, we believe that there must be symmetry in the information. So the U.S. now, I guess, they may not, because they took a long time getting around to this. I've heard about this so-called investigation. Everybody's been talking about it. Every social media for the last several years, that everybody knew. The Reuters wrote about it, but it took many years. I'm shocked that it took so many years to conclude it. And it is on gold smuggling, because obviously you would have had the record there. And so I'm surprised that it took so many years, but it's here now, and we've requested the information. Let's see where all of the people who are involved, and let's get the information about the smuggling that would allow us to take action against it. So we are very pleased with the partnership we have had with the United States government. Things work slowly and sometimes in an asymmetric way, but we have noticed that over the last several years, we've been getting serious responses from the US government, I mean, on a whole range of activities and in a timely fashion. When the letter was sent through the US Embassy by Minister Ashni Singh on Tuesday, the US ambassador contacted him and said she sent it up already, and she strongly recommended that the information be provided early to us. So we're waiting for that. I've said already that every agency, except because the central bank had to move with alacrity, given the cambio license and the nature of that, because it's in the financial sector. So they're still looking at a report on the exposure in the financial sector, and all the other agencies that have like a business interaction or regulatory responsibility for sectors in which the Mohammeds are involved in, they have to present their report. I don't want to preempt what will happen, but that report will go to the cabinet and other places.
I want to press you, sir. You said sometimes things don't move sometimes move in the way that it ought to be with respect to the investigations. But a straight question: do you think that the U.S. government trusts the Guyana government fully to provide certain types of information
Yeah,
dealing with certain types of investigations?
I think there is a great deal of trust, because this here is on smuggling. And it's a straightforward thing, basically. You get the metal abroad and it's not declared, you know it's smuggled. We have had joint operations on much more sensitive things, on drug trafficking, joint enforcement actions where we've shared information with the US and they have shared information with us. And none of those operations have been compromised. None of them. And so until now, as you've seen since 2016, this was a problem. You were here from the beginning? Yes. So you heard what Trotman said. But none of the regulatory agencies still have the report. None of the regulatory agencies have that report as to who was involved. And there was a substantial amount of gold, 15,000 ounces per week, Trotman said. And he said that the exit points and the entry points and the quantities were identified by the US government. At that time, if they told the minister, he should be asked, there must be a list of names of the people, what happened. But none of the regulatory bodies have that. I've asked them. The Gold Board, the Ministry of Natural Resources doesn't have it. The GRA doesn't have it. Now, and the police. So it's not something else. But we have had good intelligence sharing, and we have strong cooperation in the defense sector, and as well as fighting transnational crime, money laundering, and drug trafficking. Yes, Marcel.
Yeah. A follow-up to the gold smuggling. the
Yes.
2016 meeting with
Yes.
the US officials here, when Minister Trotman had given that 15,000 per week quotation.
You wrote the story?
I'm not telling you, but this is not about who wrote the story. I'm just
No,
telling you the facts
I'm just
here.
finding out. Yeah.
There had been an Operation Nimble Mule, I think, activated then.
Nimble Mule?
Yes,
You know more than anybody here. Tell us more.
really.
Right, yeah.
And it predated when they were in office. What I want to know is
No, but tell us
you.
about the Nimble Mule so I
I
can.
can't. You know more than everybody else. Don't come with that now.
No, what is this Nimble Mule? You just mentioned a Nimble Mule.
It was an investigation on the
Yeah, okay.
on the gold smuggling. What I
So-
want to know from you, what I'm asking, is what have you asked of the regulatory agencies and law enforcement here as it relates to gold smuggling? What have you asked?
So the thing is that you ask them, are you part of the gold smuggling? What do you expect them to say?
No.
Oh, that okay.
No, I mean, since this report
Oh,
came out
that
on
report.
Tuesday,
So that
what has been
which
your,
report you're talking about?
the U.S. Tuesday's report,
Tuesday's report.
release.
Yes.
What has been the government of Guyana interactions with the law enforcement and regulatory agencies here?
So,
What has
I
been
just told
activated?
you about 3 agencies: the central bank, the FIU, the GRA, the Gold Board, where we spoke with the Gold Board, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. These are the main agencies. The police, they don't have this information. The information, once we get it, then goes to the law enforcement to act on this. So we have involved all the regulatory bodies. But I'm interested in finding out about this Nimble Mule and who it identified. Right. Please tell us more about the Nimble Mule. We talk later. Who was the Nimble Mule?
The other question is, you made reference to Ms. Thomas's resignation from the party. Mr. Mohammed is also a PPP representative at the NEC level. What happens to him? And you sounded more concerned about the party, Ms. Thomas's resignation from the party, and the image it would have to the party than to government.
No. I sounded because I know this person and she has worked hard. We're human beings too. I know her and she worked extraordinarily hard among the party circles. It's unfortunate that this has happened. She has professed her innocence, but she said, I'm resigning and I'm available for the investigation. And whatever the verified facts are, she recognizes she will have to face the consequences. But it's still unfortunate from a human perspective, because that is what I expressed. So I don't see anything. The Mohammed, as I said before, all the other agencies are looking at the implication, and their report will go to, I guess, the president, the cabinet, to look at the implications, the other implications of the sanction. But the financial sector, the central bank had to move almost immediately, even before they complete the report, FIU and the central bank.
And my last question is on the procurement aspect of it. You pointed to the 2 contracts, and it was small. You said something also. The Mohammeds had 3 contracts, and they were all the lowest. They had 2 contracts, but in the lots for the Luzignan, they had the lowest responsive bids to all 3, yet they were only given 1. this kind of jumps out at me in terms of procurement, in that how can it be justified then by the evaluators that you have, regardless now you know that they're saying that it happened under corrupt circumstances, but how can you have three lowest responsive bids, yet those contracts are not given to that bidder? And it raises the whole question again of procurement irregularities. And this was pointed out in the report too, because here you have allegations against a sitting official, and it makes it even worse that it's a sitting.
Marcia, you're going on and on.
No, no. I
first
want to
of all,
know, no.
Yes.
I'm going on because I want to get to the procurement
Okay,
point
well, get to the point.
because you emphasize a lot and you went on and on a lot about that too.
Well,
So my
you're
question
here as a
is,
reporter, not as the
I
person
don't-
hosting the press conference.
I don't
So-
intend to go on with you like
so
that,
can
but I
you-
just want to explain so that you're clear with me where I'm coming from. On procurement, you're saying that government has so much of an insight. Are you concerned that this part of it was highlighted and this can speak to a procurement irregularity within the system?
No. Specific line in the release that said that the Mohammeds were basically bribing government officials to get government contracts. So that was a specific line in the release. So we have an obligation to check, first of all, how many contracts they got. Shouldn't we do that? So I can say to you, we checked that and we saw 2 contracts in 4 years. I explained which contracts those were. Then I explained to you that both were publicly tendered, so they were not selectively tendered. People were not handpicked and given the contracts. They were public tender. I told you there were multi-agency evaluators. The evaluators also evaluate for capacity. That is why even if we had gone maybe for the pump station, say for example, you would give 19 pump stations to one person maybe because they have the lowest bid there, regardless of their capacity. So they evaluate capacity too, and then they may give one contract there and say, but they don't have the capacity to do 3 contracts at the same time. So the next responsive bidder gets it. And this is what is recommended by the evaluators, independent evaluators. So nobody changed that at the political level. Nobody changed what was, and that's the point I'm making. So if you go by what you're suggesting, then if a person bids for 50 contracts and they're lowest in all 50, then they must get it because they are the lowest responsive bidder in all 50, regardless of the capacity to complete the work. And that is what creates things. The same pump stations, the people who are delayed now are some of the ones who had experience before. There were 2 or 3 of the 19 who had prior experience to do that. And they're delayed, some more than even some people who didn't have experience in these areas. So that is how it works sometimes. And I don't see that as corruption, because you have to evaluate for capacity too. Now, whether there's corruption in procurement awards, I can't put my neck on the block for that because I don't know. And that's why I said here we send signals, whether it happens in the regional tender board, at the department tender board, ministerial tender board, MPTAP, because there may be cases where this happens. But it is not a system that says, the system promotes it. You have individual lapses. And that's why I'm saying, if we find the individuals, we take action. So in this case, We want to find out what evidence there is about these contracts that were like, because we only have two in the state sector, and if there was some evidence that these were tampered with to give these individual the individual.
Naomi
Yes,
Paris,
yes,
Guyana
please.
Chronicle. Just to shift your attention a bit, what can we expect from Guyana's participation in the upcoming G20 summit in Brazil?
Okay. So you're already familiar with the invitation of President Lula to attend this summit. So I think we're basically going to talk a bit more about how we navigated a very complex international environment that had not been and is still not sympathetic to countries that have this valuable resource that makes a big impact globally on climate issues, but can't get any help. That is basically tropical forests, the countries that have tropical forests. So it's a tough kind of, it's not just tough, but you had to go through a major way of crossing these hurdles that are artificial hurdles that are placed in the pathway of these countries. There is a clear recognition that deforestation and forest degradation around the world is a major contributor to climate change. Maybe about 16% of the greenhouse gases come from the deforestation and degradation, land degradation. And there is no net zero without addressing this. Yet, there is no attention being paid to it. And people believe that the forests will preserve themselves or be done through philanthropy, because the third world, we shouldn't pay them to do this, but we are paying everyone else in Europe through the EU ETS to abate a ton of carbon. You're paying $90 per ton, and you don't want to pay $20 per ton of carbon in the developing world, the abatement of a ton of carbon. And the impact, whether it's emitted in Guyana or in Europe, has the same impact on the atmosphere, on climate change. So we're saying, let's level the playing field. Either you have more public money to address this very important mitigation option, or use market-based mechanisms. We have used the market-based mechanism, but not every country wants to, because or can do that because of complex land tenure systems, etc., in those countries. So I guess that's when I said to President Lula when he was here, that most likely it's a menu sort of approach to how we try to mobilize funds for tropical forests without compromising sovereignty over these forests, and so that countries can pick and choose, and putting in place a supportive environment for that. That is kind of discussion I want to have there, because it's really frustrating when you think about what some countries that have tried very hard. Like I pointed out before, Guyana, we have 1% of global tropical forests. 1%. If you extrapolate the $750 million for 30% at a minimum, we'll raise between 2.5, maybe $3 billion. Okay, especially if the carbon is traded on secondary markets. The money pledged now, public money from governments to assist the 99% of remaining tropical forests, is less than 3 billion. And we in Guyana, for a 1% forest, using a market-based mechanism, will get about 3 billion if we extrapolate, if we can get the same terms for the remaining 70%. So it that shows the success of our model, but also how badly those countries are treated through a public kind of, because they have stuck with this public type of raising funds. They're hoping that the developed countries will give them some money, and those countries are not giving anyone anything. Yes, please.
Afternoon, Trina Williams, Ghana Chronicle. I know you briefly touched on some of the troubles in the opposition camp, but I want to take you back to their nomination day, which was on Monday. After the announcement of the results, we would have seen that a great number of opposition members would have said that the results were fixed and there were a number of irregularities. I'd like your thoughts on this. Secondly, what was really noticeable is that some former senior government officials were absent from this big day for the party. Um, in this light, what do you think this spells for the future of the PNC? And on a policy level, what are some specific measures that the government is taking to address those foreign companies that are using local ones as a front?
Local.
Local companies
Okay.
as a front.
So the foreign companies that are using local companies as a front. This is particularly as it relates to registration under the Local Content Act. That's where it makes sense, so that they can enjoy benefits that are preserved for our people, that we put in the act for our people. And so the local companies that are complicit in this too will face consequences also, not just the foreign companies. So we had a discussion with the Commissioner General about this matter. We are looking at it carefully because you have to show ownership of the company, more than 50% ownership of the company, Guyanese ownership. Some of the foreign companies coming in, they're giving notionally a 50% ownership, but then they're getting paid all sorts of fees for the services they provide, etc. So it's not a real benefit that flows to Guyanese. It's easy. Once you take an account, you will see that. And so a lot of those will go. Soon we're going to start checking on this issue. And we have to, in the new local content, well, the update of the local content law, we will plug some loopholes and strengthen the enforcement and the penalties for doing so. But right now, the GRA is looking at some of these companies because they are, by fancy accounting, they're defeating the purpose of the act. Fancy accounting and with the complicity of some local individuals, defeating the purpose of the act, which is to give preferences to our people. The nomination day, I don't want to like go back too much in their thing. It was interesting. It was an interesting day, and for me, I just, like, some people sent me they follow the leader walking in Norton and stuff like that. It's I just want to give them a free pass. Let me give them a free pass, let them do their thing and stuff like that. It's not gonna. You're right about all the charges. Roysdale Ford has made a lot of charges about corruption. There is made a falsification of documents. A whole range of the Norton and the others have defended this. So you have really two sets of people there. Party is split down the middle. One group that believes that all the conditions are set for free and fair elections, and another substantial group believes that they're heading to rigged elections in the internal party elections. And so whatever happens here, at the end of the day, people are going to be aggrieved. And so they have to sort that out themselves. For us, as independent observers and people from the outside, as a Guyanese citizen, you have to assess for yourself. Can this party, with those leaders, ever form a government that could sit with ExxonMobil and discuss serious issues, or can represent national interests, or can you believe anything they say with any promise, any promises they make? It's simply they don't have the capability and the integrity to do that. If you're going to rig your internal elections and you can't get that going, how are you going to lead this country? And that's where people on their own should just look at this. That it's more, it should be a lesson to APNU members and also other Guyanese, more than for us in the PPP. We've already known historically what's going to happen there. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. All right, just now, Kaichor News here. Kaichor News here.
Good afternoon. Also, Ms. Kaichur News. Dr. Jagdeo, given the fact that the auditors from the local consumption have confirmed with the Kaichur News that the audit report they handed over was 170 pages, but the management report
Which
was
auditor
a
confirmed that?
separate document. I can't
Which
realize.
auditor confirmed that? Well, you can confirm the auditor who told you this, then I'll answer that question.
So you're stating that the full audit report is
the
online?
auditor said to me, I asked the Ministry of Natural Resources, did you put up the whole report that you received from the auditors? They said to me, yes, we uploaded the entire report. They said, the management report is separate. We got a letter from the auditors. We were told by the auditors, and then we got a letter to confirm it, to ensure that ExxonMobil doesn't see that. That's it. So they told me, and I believe them more than the Kaichor News. So if you can't identify the person who told you that, I'm not responding to it. Let's go
on. In the event that there's a dispute between the oil companies and the government, the PSA, and that dispute cannot be resolved, the PSA has provisions for international arbitration, which can be costly and sometimes a lengthy process. And additionally, Guyana would have to basically pay the bills, the legal fees for both parties. Since you committed to better contract management, do you plan to address this?
Yeah, well, there are lots of things that we are addressing in the PSA. I just told you about how we've addressed one issue, which was a contentious issue, through the change in the law and also the permit, the license that we issue, which is the decommissioning fund, the establishment. On the environment side, we are superseding all these guarantees, not superseding, but on top of the guarantees, we are ensuring that we have a law to reinforce what we have in the EPA Act, which says full liabilities for permit holders. We are reinforcing this with a new act that deals specifically with spills, and we're extending it to other groups, shipping companies, etc. We're putting in the act a mechanism that would allow people, if they feel, well, if they suffer losses, that they can go, they have a, I shouldn't be speaking too much, a tribunal that can address these issues. So mechanism really for should be people suffer losses. In the Act 2, and maybe I should not speak about details, but we're addressing the environmental issues through that. We have already addressed resolution through a new PSA, the low royalty rate, the no taxes through the PSA. So we are chipping away at the provisions of the Act. We have already the gas to energy project. We had free gas from that area. So the local content law, which now would give us $700 billion of procurement opportunity, was not there before. All of those are they're part of better contract management, and they're part of bringing additional benefits. And without creating a wave, we don't shout loud, we are addressing a lot of these things. We're not shouting at the top of our voices. We're addressing them with the involvement of the company too.
While acknowledging all of the wonderful things that the government is currently
very
doing. So you're saying that
I hope Glenn Hall would acknowledge
that
that too,
the
or urge him to acknowledge.
international arbitration issue is one of the things that you're looking at.
Yes. So international arbitration is standard in almost any contract. So there are some standards that you can change. There are things that you can't say, okay, we'd hire 2 local persons to do this. It would never change. So you can't fight things that have been part of contract law and contracts of this nature for centuries, and you can't change that because there's another party to this. The other party believes that if you go to Glenn Lal as the head of the tribunal, you would never get a fair hearing. So they want an international body to be part of it. And that's why countries sign up to things like ICSID, etc., which is the World Bank, their tribunal or to deal with disputes. So this is the sort of thing. Almost in every contract, you have arbitration proceedings, and most of them are international nature.
But what I want to know specifically, would government be looking to probably have discussions with Exxon or to probably find a way out where they would not have to foot the bill of both sides?
Yes, but that is what we signed up to. We signed up to this nonsense because a lot of things there we signed up to. So ultimately, I think eventually that would happen. You know, if people talk about renegotiating and all of that stuff. If you change any provision, or we go to court and parliament and change a provision, the thing that Trotman signed is that we have to end up paying for that. That's what we signed on to. And any change, you can make changes, but they would say, look at what you sign on. It will go to international tribunal or even a local court, and the local court will say your contract says you have to pay in case you make changes. That's what we signed up to. Trotman got a free pass because he wrote some book that said what he said basically. I don't know what he even said in the book. Just made an excuse. Anyhow, yeah, go on.
Finally, the UNICEF report for 2016 to 2022 noted that severe child food poverty and moderate child food poverty are at 20 and 40% respectively. Can you say how can this be with Guyana being ranked the richest country in the world per capita?
Okay. Have you delved into this report a bit? So the report, did you look at I checked this. So guess what period this survey was done? So they have to have a survey on the basis on which you publish the report. This was a survey done in 2018, 2019, and it dealt with a period before that. That's the data they're using for this report. So it has nothing to do about the situation from 2019. Huh? So, yes, so that is the old survey. So it's an old up new thing. You should ask Norton about this survey. That's how these reports are done. And but I do have problems with some of these reports too. So some of these reports, let me just tell you conceptually, and this is not as vice president, more as a technical person. So, or not head of the party. I just explore that. So we have to have 8 food groups. So if we don't get 8 food groups, we don't get rank high that we have to eat nuts, we have to eat salads, we have to eat all kinds of things so that they classify you in this area. So how many of our people eat? We eat cook up rice and we're okay with that. We can, in their group, that would be, we only have access to one type of food, rice and maybe meat too. We don't eat, or if you don't eat your salad. So we got to introduce salads in the Amerindian communities and all of this now for people to eat with their meal. You see how many food groups you have access to? You look at it back again carefully. So we now, most of us will go down as being starving because we only have access to things. Then you have another group of unhealthy things. It has nothing to do with wealth. So if you eat unhealthy food, you get marked down too. So if you're eating fried chicken, your child is eating fried chicken all the time, like fried chicken and soda all the time. It's expensive, but considered bad. So you get marked down for that too. It is, when you look at these international reports, they use all kind of developed country standards. They go and sit down at the UN and they come down and try to impose a lot of nonsense on our countries. I'm not one for that, but I'm saying that not as vice president or the general secretary of the party. It's as a technical person. I've argued against this. One time, Columbia, I think a university, has an environmental index, and the US is ranked number 2, 3, or 4. We're like way down. We have 86% of our country is covered with forests. Our per capita emission of is very low, minuscule compared to the US, and we are ranked below the US on an environmental index. So because they put in a lot of extraneous things. The same thing happened if you look at the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Index. So if you have malaria, you get marked down, but only hot countries, you have malaria in Africa and Guyana and stuff. So you get marked down for that. You get marked down if the size of your economy. So guess which countries always are high on the index? Because size of economy matters on a global competitiveness index. We have to, these indices are designed, corruption perception index. Often in the developed world, they have 40 reports on which to assess their ranking. In the developing countries, they send 2 persons, or they get a Clive Thomas or somebody here, often your opposition, to do a little assessment here, and you get ranked. But the data pool from which they assess the developed world is 40 different cross-referencing indices, and then you end up there. It is, I've always argued that the developing world often look things. So and I believe, like in the corruption perception index, the darker you are, the lower on the index they put you. I believe that to be true, the darker you are, because this somehow helps the developed world. It reinforces their somehow a little at the top of the index. They're not corrupt. These big countries have some of the most massive corruption regime in the sale of weapons and everything else. They don't even get figured in. So that's a little rant on my part about these indices. So when I see people say, "Oh, look where you are on the index," I don't pay too much attention to it. But by the way, that child on the poverty, it's from the Apnu era. Ask Norton about that one. Yes. Oh, all right. So let me go. Dennis, you come back in second round, right? Right.
Cassie Henry, DPI. Dr.
Yeah.
Jagdeo, just a few questions. At a recent press conference, you mentioned that the government is looking to acquire an additional 30 megawatts of power in a similar agreement to the one you have with Car Powership. Is that still the plan? Could you update us on
Yeah,
that?
we were looking to see if we can. Right now, they said to me they have power in the system, adequate power that allows some maintenance of the other assets that we've had. Recently, in the morning, I see their power coming on and off. So I called and found out with all its power now, they told me some birds now found a new perch. I said, only now these birds want to go and sit on this line now across the Berbice River. They sent me some dead birds. They did some walk across now. They found some dead birds now. They sent me the pictures. So they brought in some protection against birds now. So they said they have to shut down for 6 or 8 hours, 8 hours to put in this protection to chase off the birds or shock the birds or something like that. So I said, I hope when this goes in, it's not going to be something else. So it is, anyhow. Yesterday we met with GPL. We looked at they're going to be about a $200 million project. So I explained the components already, the 5 components that are already financed and going. The pipeline, the power plant, the NGL facility, the project to evacuate the power from Wales to the control center, and the control center itself. So that will bring all of the power to about Eccles here for distribution. So the existing system now, we have to look at that with all that new power in the place, that we have grid stability to distribute the power, transmit and distribute the power. So they've come up and they've gone to tender for about $200 million of work to upgrade the grid, put in more transformers, change out the lines and stuff like that, so we can have a more stable distribution system. Because even if you have more power, if in your area they don't have adequate transformers, etc., you would always have the spot. Maybe not the blackout for the whole country, but in these areas too. So they're doing that now. They've gone out to tender. Then we have to transmit large amount of power now to Berbice too. In Linden, it's off the grid, so we are thinking about eventually moving a transmission main up there, which is going to be costly, and then power the highway from there. But we now look at taking a big new transmission main up to Berbice. So that's where they're on the drawing board for that one too. We're exploring using some of the gas to move turbines into Bartica, gas turbines, Essequibo Coast, Lethem, Linden. So eventually, if it's technically feasible, we have some good price offers, but we don't know if it's technically feasible as yet. To take the power off the pipeline and containerize them and move them into these areas so we can supply these areas that are not connected with the Demerara grid, the Demerara Berbice grid, and they're off. That whether we can supply those areas from using gas as a fuel, because even when we complete this project, we still have to supply those areas to Bunker C or find other sources, solar. We're putting in solar panels in Essequibo, in Berbice, in Linden, about 35 megawatts. We're thinking about another 25 megawatts of solar in Demerara. So it's a combination of all of these things. And a lot of work is going on, a lot of work and planning behind these. Ultimately, we have a stable grid. That's it. So yeah, what was it?
I was asking, you
Oh, the
mentioned,
30.
yeah.
So if we can integrate the 30 megawatts. So, for example, they're now working. I think Cummins has been awarded a contract to do a 5 million upgrade from Kingston to Sophia. So if you bring the power there now, if you bring additional power the Kingston, you can't take it to the substation at Sophia because that one line is not adequate to take the power there. So it's where you can integrate the power to. We could have brought in the bigger power ship, which is nearly 100 megawatts of power, 70 something, nearly 80, and connect it here at Kingston, but the lines can't transmit it. So we had to take it to Berbice and hook it there and then bring back the power to Demerara, into Demerara, because you could hook it there. If we had hooked it up at Kingston, we would have lost all the existing power units there because the line can only transmit what we're generating there now, not additional power. So eventually, when that is done, then you can bring in more power there too. And maybe ultimately, because the power from Wales is coming around this way to the Margaret and then going to Vredenhoop. We're building a transmission main to Vredenhoop. So maybe eventually, that is to supply region 3. Eventually, we can have a loop and bring it across back here. So in case you have issues there, you can move the power over here. So it's a lot of things at the drawing board now that we are looking at. So if we get the additional 30 and we can integrate it of a similar nature where you can just hook up like we hook up this ship, then we'll do it. If not, we'll have to make sure we use this reprieve to maintain the units that we had deferred maintenance on, because you were right at peak demand all the time, your capacity, and until the gas to energy project comes on stream.
Additionally, can you give us an update on when the government plans to commence rolling out the vouchers for cervical cancer testing?
They haven't done that as yet. They frankly told me 3 weeks. They told me within 3 weeks, and that was like a month and a half ago. They told me they'd be ready for both the spectacles. Next Tuesday it starts. Okay, for both the spectacles and this cervical cancer, the screening, because we got to get it out. It's a large number of persons, maybe 350,000 women will have to collect that voucher and then go in for the test.
And finally, at a recent press conference, you also mentioned, I know you mentioned that the $7 billion cost of living allocation will be utilized near to the end of the year or later in the year. But can you say what immediate measures the government is looking at now to lessen the impact?
Yeah, because the problem is that a lot of this is not driven by domestic factor. It's imported inflation. So I see a lot of things written, and the analysis are shoddy because like this freight rate increasing from 3.5 to 20,000 for a container coming from China. We can remove the taxes, but very little else you can do on that sort of thing. None of our inflation is driven by taxes because inflation is driven by cost push from the government. So the government type inflation is when you increase taxes, you increase the fees for government services. But look at what we have done. We've reduced the fee, we reduced the taxes for about 40 billion, all the VAT, etc. We have removed the 50% tax on fuel, which is about a $75 billion benefit to people. So everybody benefits from it, but they don't see it directly. We have removed the 50% excise tax. We've removed a ton of value-added tax. We have adjusted the freight costs for calculation of taxes. Those are things we did. We have absorbed the price increases that should have come for electricity because of fuel increase. So the price of fuel went up from $70 that we are budgeting. Now we are paying over $105, maybe $110 per barrel. So that means yesterday they told us $66 million US dollars more than what GPL budgeted for fuel. But we're not increasing the price of electricity. In another country, they would have increased the price of electricity. So that means before the end of the year, we'll go to Parliament for a supplementary of $66 million US dollars for just subsidizing electricity. We have to go to the Parliament for that before the recess because of just fuel prices. And people would say, oh, we're not getting no benefit. The government not dealing with cost of living. $66 million US dollars. But if you look at the quantum of fuel and the movement from $70 to $100 and something dollars. So this is, no government has been doing this sort of thing. No one have done it. They had it where the fuel prices were $30 a barrel. And still, they kept the prices at where it is today. $30 a barrel. Now it's over $100 a barrel. So none of it has been pushed by government services. If we didn't do that, if we didn't keep water rate constant and electricity rates constant and remove the taxes from fuel so that transportation, the price wouldn't increase for gasoline and diesel too much, it would have pushed up transportation, water, electricity. And people don't recognize that the tens of billions of dollars going into that. They're looking for specific handout. But there's some that we can control, like the freight increases.
Jagdeo, follow up to the earlier question. With respect to Ms. May Thomas, in her debriefing after difficulties with the U.S. Law enforcement and immigration, what did she tell you she was interrogated about?
Well, she said they asked her about the Mohammeds.
And did that flag anything in your head?
Yeah, but they asked, but it was precisely because of that she moved from the Ministry of Home Affairs to Labor. And we didn't, at that time, there was no notification about any investigation. You yourself said, you asked me a question at the beginning. The government had not been formally notified that there was an investigation, nor that they would impose sanctions on the Mohammeds. We said that openly, and the president indicated that we have not been formally notified. So there are many people in this country who were dealing with the Mohammeds because at that time they were not sanctioned. There was no pending investigation of that nature for smuggle goal against them here. So
what did they ask her about the Mohammeds?
No, I didn't go into details. I didn't go into details.
And that did not flag anything in your head?
Because of that, that is why she was moved from the Ministry of Home Affairs. But she said that clearly. We asked her what, in fact, the report that I saw, he said they asked her about the Mohammeds. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon.
Not me personally, but
good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo from Belgrave Kaiser News. I just want to go back to, you mentioned the predictions by the IEA, and I heard you mention that the government were able to get the decommissioning fund into separate account. Is there any way that the government can force the hand of Exxon so that we can get a little bit more revenue now, since if the oil prices as predicted do fall, we can get less revenue than we're getting now from the higher price?
I don't know if you were the ones who reported that because of higher than anticipated oil prices, the model was run on a different set of numbers, the feasibility and all of that. So the oil prices have been higher than that for a while now. That the period that it would take to amortize the investment is shortened. And so of the 30 billion or so spent, through the cost bank. I think it's about 28 billion, $28 billion or about 6 trillion Guyana dollars or so. That 20 billion has been paid back from the cost bank. I think that it was reported in one of your own, the Stabroek News too, or Kaichor News, not Stabroek, Kaichor. So that should tell you by yourself that the guy who spoke there and you reported him saying that the cost bank is they're paying back the capital invested, and therefore if it's moving so fast that the government share, because now you're addressing all of your costs or you're getting close to repaying your costs, the government share of the revenue would increase significantly. And that is why I said to you at Freedom House several press conferences ago that we anticipate that in the next few years, our revenue will grow from about 2 billion per annum now, if all prices remain the same, to about 8 to 10 billion dollars per year. So that you're not getting a little bit more, you're getting much more in the outer years.
Okay. On the same note, you said that you mentioned that the government via the law will address some concerns to deal with oil spill, and then you mentioned the decommissioning fund that you were able to get. What are other aspects of the contract are you guys, or contentious issue are you guys trying to fix?
Well, a lot has been fixed in the Petroleum Activities Act, and if you look at that act, and maybe if Glenlal was a little bit more not so political, maybe we could have maybe we could have done more of this, to say that go through the act and show all the tools that were lacking in the 1986 act that we had, the Petroleum Act, and how we have broadened the tools and the scope for regulation of these oil and gas companies, brought that right up to a cutting edge modern era. This is a cutting edge law that we've passed that deals with a whole range of issues that were not even part of the last act. You should look at it. That has empowered now the state to protect the people of this country better and to have better deals. That's the first element. The second one had to deal with the PSA. The third is the auction and the conditions of the auction. Even now, people are saying it's too tough, so we're having a little harder time concluding the auction that we've had. That our incentives have been eroded, or not significantly, somewhat. And our argument is that we are sticking firm on the fiscal terms. So you need to look at every one of these things and see how far we have moved the dial on the clock. Look at the local content law. Look at Trinidad and Tobago, 100 years of producing oil and gas, and they don't have a law with the teeth that ours have. They don't have a law like that. And look at its benefit to how many people. Look at the gas to energy project, and look at the savings to the country at the individual level. Over $100 million per year you pay less in electricity bill, US dollars per year, because we cut the price in half. And that benefit goes to every business and to every home in the country because of superior contract management and quiet negotiation, not beating our chest every day like Glenn Lal, beating his chest and running around every year. Quiet, steadily improving the regulatory environment, etc. Look at the environment permits. Look at the licenses, how they've changed. To go, they're now they approximate any modern license anywhere in the world from being a backwater type of license. Look at all of these things, and that's why I took umbrage when the Starbuck News editorial said nothing has changed basically. Nothing has changed, and you will see then how there are lots of things. So every element, ring fencing, we have practically addressed that by the size of the blocks. Because if the blocks are small, then unlike the Starbuck block, which is so large and so much exploration can take place, that then you effectively are ring fencing to a limited expenditure in these areas because of smaller size blocks in the auction. So a lot has been done, but it doesn't get acknowledged in this political kind of hullabaloo and all kinds of stuff.
Um, s- on the same decommissioned fund, now that it's going into a separate account, can you say how much has been set aside, or is
That's to be set up in 2 years. It will be set up because it has to coincide with Whiptail coming on stream.
you have an idea at this time how much the companies has been setting aside per barrel for decommissioning fund?
I don't know the exact figure, but you should be able to get that figure from the ministry because it's calculated on the basis of a fixed amortization, a period when they have decommissioning. Like some of the projects are 2039 and stuff like that. So they would calculate what it will take to decommission, and I think it's spread over that period annually. So I don't have that details. That should be a public detail which we can get to you, or that should be available to the ministry in their reports.
Um, on the, I look at the financial shows that Exxon has around, well, they are stating that they have around 3.2 trillion or around $16 billion US dollars of assets. Can you say what are these assets? Because and
Right?
this is the fact
No,
that
but you can't ask me that. How are you gonna ask me to list like, all Exxon
no, not
asset, man?
listed, but just give us an
But
idea of what are
yes,
some of the
but
big
oh
ticket
God,
assets.
every time, last a couple of times I addressed this. Go and look at their financials. They have to identify these issues. So don't give me
State a figure.
no, but the thing is that it has that figure is bolstered by assets that they have. You would get it. You may not get it in the profit and loss statement. You get it from other statement. I can't go and list Exxon assets here. You got to do research too. You want me to do your work and ask me here? I got to go and list. Oh, they bought two desks. They bought two desks for the CEO Alistair. Each desk cost 50,000 Guyana dollars. That's one their asset here. Because that's their assets too, you know. So you want me to do that? You want me to go and do that?
At least you could give us
The
some of the
FPSO and all of that. You want me to start doing those things? Please do your work. Go and do your work. Yeah.
question. The vessel for the new GDF vessel was commissioned recently, and then Myra is also tendering for a hydrographic survey vessel. The question is, what are some of the? Can you set some light on the purposes? What some of the purposes that we were using the GDF vessel to patrol, what we were protecting, and so
Yeah,
forth,
yeah, yeah.
and the hydrographic survey vessel. What will this data be used for by Myra?
Well, in navigation, it's clear as that. So they know the water channels of our rivers, etc., for navigation purposes. Then once you map that, you then know. For example, they told me that we had a depth at which the power vessel had to go to dock. And they always said, we don't have that depth in the whole Barbies River. We can't dock there. And then I said, but check it. Then they went and do the sounding, and we had it. And that's why the ship could come in. So a lot of this stuff, I don't know where it's anecdotal or it's ancient. So this sort of stuff, we constantly need to chart and map our waterways, the channels, etc. Sometimes they shift, and that is important now, very important. So that's what the vessel would be used for to ensure that Marada is equipped to do that, better perform its function. There's pilotage functions and everything else. And then the vessel that we acquired, we made it clear that we want to better police our exclusive economic zone. So that means looking out for our assets there. We've heard that we lose about 800 million, 100 million US a year. This is some information that came from the US in illegal fishing. We need to verify whether that's so. Our vessels could be out there. We're acquiring drones that have long range capability too, that could send images, go out there, and also see if they're illegal vessels. And we need, if we identify these through zone and maybe radar coverage, then we need vessels to intercept these illegal fishing vessels, etc. So multiple use, but better police or exclusive economic zone. Yes, what you wanted. All right. Thank you. Hope that your girlfriend contacting you, eh? It's too late.